Okay, so the question was, if we want to bar and hit the 7 flat, what one of these three modes, minor modes, has just the 3 flat and the 7 flat? So that became the issue, and that was the inspiration for doing the chart for guitar. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to go back to guitar and figure this stuff out once again, what's going on. And that's going to put me way ahead of my actual playing ability on the P5. So that's where it's at. What minor do we get when we add just the 3? Well, as it turns out, we don't get a minor at all when we add just the 3 flat, because Mixolydian is the only mode. Okay, so here's Ionian, Dorian minor, Phrygian minor, Lydian major, Mixolydian dominant 5 is the only mode with 1 flat, because it's just the flatted 7th. Circus music, right? Name that tune. So it isn't really even. It is a minor. It is a minor, okay, and it would be perhaps the relative 6th minor of the 4th, okay, like that. That's the only thing, or that's about it. So it'd be the relative 6th of the 4th, but it's really just a Mixolydian. And we wouldn't want to get into too many things. It does happen to be the relative 6th of the 4th. All right, so we're going to move to the next chart. That was the key of G. So we're not going to compare the key of G to the key of C right now. We're just saying that if you take the key of G and you flat the 7th, that's what a Mixolydian is. So let's look at, it was almost a mistake. And I realized I was mixing up the key of G with the key of C there. So we're going to stay in the key of C kind of thing, but this is applicable to any key. That's the most important thing to remember, is that fluency, that conveyor belt kind of thing, that whatever you want to call it, applicability, clickability. Normal guitar, major, minor, all 3 minor modes, cage chord. So we've got all 3 minor modes. How does that work? How does that work? Let's put me over here a second, and let's go up to Kiner's corner over here. Okay, it doesn't want to get any lower than that. So say we start in the key of C. 4 would be the key of F. What would 7 flat be? The key of B flat. What would 6 flat be? The key of A flat. What would 3 flat be? Key of E flat. 2 flat would be the key of D flat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flats there. So that gives you a Locrian. If you start on C and hit all the flats, you have a Locrian there, which has a dominant 7th on it. Not a major 7th as in like Lydian or Ionian. It has a dominant 7th, okay, a dominant 7th, like Dorian, Phrygian, and Aeolian, and Mixolydian, but not Lydian or Ionian. Now, this is it for the key of C. Now, if we're in the key of E, all right, so if E is the lowest playable, or we're just in the key of E, starting out and you start flattening things. So the 7th flat of the key of E is a D, okay? That puts you in 4 in the key of E. You're counting in the key of E now. E, F sharp, G sharp, A. So 4 would be A. The key of 7 flat we just discussed for the key of E would be D. The key of 3 flat would be the key of G. The key of 6 flat would be the key of C. And the key of 2 flat would be the key of F. Okay? Now we're working in the key of C, but that just shows you the fluency. That's why, or whatever it is, the applicability, or let me think a second, versatility of using numbers instead of letters. Okay, but we have the shapes are also versatile. So we add 1 flat, we get a 7 flat, so we go start at C, add a 7 flat, that becomes the mixolydian of the 4th, which is F. We add the 3rd flat, that becomes the Dorian of the key of B flat. We add the 6th flat with it. Now we can like do it in a scale form because I only have so many fingers. We add the 6th flat to it. We're in the key of E flat. Okay, and then we add the 3 flat to it, rather, puts us in the key E flat. Add the 6th flat, puts us in the key of A flat. So what we're adding actually becomes the key at one point. All right, so no, we're adding the 2 flat there. It doesn't become the key. That's important. I had to realize that it doesn't become the key. Remember, we add the 7 flat. We add the 3 flat, it becomes the 7 flat. Add the 6 flat, it becomes the 3 flat. It trails behind. They tell you that sometimes when you're looking at a staff register. Oh, the flat is the second to last flat on the staff. That's the key. So there's always 1 flat ahead. So here we've added the 2 flat. Now it's the 6 flat, which was the last one that we added, etc., etc., etc. So that's how that works, and that's piano stuff, and it's music theory. Now here's the rule. The shape, the cage shape, go back 2 letters in a pent scale for each new flat added. Okay, so for 7 flat, we're going to go to the shape is the 4th because E is the 4th shape. E is the 4th. The shape of the 4th is E shape. Here's your C shape. We go to the E shape 4th. We go to the A shape 4th of that. Okay, and we go to the 4th of that, which is the D shape. And then we go to the 4th of that, which is the G shape there. Like that. I'm kind of missing that top string there. And the 4th of that would be the C shape again. And look what we've done. Now we're in the C sharp, where we had started out as C. See, I didn't bar it that time. So we made it around the circle, and it moves up 1. And that it's kind of like that circle of 60 that I have. Circle of 60 string shapes there. So you can see it goes around. There's actually 60 chord shapes. Isn't that neat? And we started from here, and we got to like C sharp, something like this. Whatever we were going. Okay, so we're just looking at the circle of 60 shapes. If you can play this in a minute, you're an expert and make it sound good. Key of F, key of B flat. Let's just look way up here on the surface here. It's like kind of like landing on a planet, right? Key of F, key of B flat, E flat, A flat, and D flat. Okay, then we go back to the E shape. We go to the C shape D flat right there. Remember that? D flat is C sharp. So we started C, we went up a half step there. You can see this took me weeks to do a couple of years ago, but I followed it all out and it does make a full circle. Prior to that, I was trying to just make a simple circle like this. And my simple circle said stop. We'd go to E at that point, and I couldn't make the circle fit. I couldn't make it fit until I realized the size of the circle was actually 12 times 5. Alright, so let's move along in today's lesson. So we've discussed that. I don't want to end up being over here for too long, because I forget I'm over here. So major plus 7 flat equals Mixolydian, and then plus 3 flat equals Dorian. Add to that. Those already exist, and that we talked about. We talked about the circle. This is the circle of fifths. Remember, it's caged. C, and let's just review this old circle here. C-A-G-E-D. It says skip one. Now we're going back 2 letters in a pen scale. So we're going in fourths, so we're going backwards. So here's your pen scale. C, D, E, G, A. C, D, E, G, A. So we're going to skip every other letter in the word cage backwards to do the fourth shapes. So it's C, the fourth of C is the E shape, the fourth of E is the A shape, and that's how we ended up doing this. And then to the D, then to the G right there, to the C right there, hold the bar, and we got ourselves a fifth of the way around the circle of 60. Isn't that interesting? Alright, so let's talk about today's chart. Now that we've had a little background, chart 482, normal guitar, major, minor, all 3 minor modes. So how do we determine that? Now we're back to good old regular guitar. How do we determine we play an A minor like that? Where is that? The chart has it. We're in the C box here. How do we know we're in the C box? Because E is the third of C, and this is where your guitar is with the fret nut on the E. Don't worry about this. That's my guitar down C tuned. Right there. Here's down C tuned. Root. If we're in the key of C, root's going to be the open C string. Right now it's behind the fret nut. Anything behind the fret nut or your fret nut or the capo is sunken. The sunken meadow. Here's where your normal E tune is, and that D tune, down D would be this. I don't do down D because I wanted to get to C, and that's where the cello note is. So I was lucky when I made my P5 CFE guitar. So this is the C box. We have 3, 4, 5 on the bottom.